lot's been happening lately, and I feel like I need to tell you, it's kind of personal.
Wait, I know you're gay. We all do.
Yeah,
Who fucking is, huh?
What are you doing here, faggot?
What the fuck is this?
Sup, cunts. Did you know vampires are just a racist construct?
serious?
Totally. Take Dracula, for instance. It's literally about an illegal immigrant causing trouble and taking the woman.
You know who we are. I know the feeling. I mean, I am stuck in a village full of a bunch of angry peasants who want to kill me.
Fucking kill.
Silence! And you know what they never told you in school? Bram Stoker was queer. He was so afraid of his own desire that he had to turn it into an evil vampire.
Chill out. You look like you need a drink.
You were dying. I brought you back. We're not gonna hurt you.
No amount of bullshit is gonna soften the blow. You're a vampire.
I want to report a missing person.
This is how we live. I know it's a lot to take in. Relax, have fun and mingle.
Where have you been? I thought you'd been killed or kidnapped or something like those jocks.
I'll tell you everything, just come with me.
Being a vampire is fucking awesome.
All right. So, in honor of Frightgown coming back, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Alice Maio Mackay, and she is an Australian filmmaker whose debut feature, So VAM, is coming out on VOD today. Alice, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. So I guess let's start with a simple question. What is So VAM about, and how did it come together?
So VAM is about a young gay drag artist in a small town. He dreams of getting away, like moving to a big city, and then there's all that kind of like high school drama, Degrassi type shit, but then throw in like vampires, just like badass like cowboy vampires, trans vampires, just thrown into this whole world. And yeah, I think it came about, I'd done a couple of short films and I was like, cool, short films are great. But then I wanted to kind of, I don't know, explore and challenge myself. And I thought for my first feature, I just wanted to make, I don't know, something that I was really passionate about and just include everything I loved. So that's why there's drag, there's vampires, there's like extended drag sequences. And I wanted to make something that didn't like water down to straight audiences as well, which sometimes, you know, mainstream queer horror does. And I also wanted to include like trans representation, but like different trans representation, because, you know, you kind of see like there's one way to be trans, but that's why there's like different trans and non-binary characters. Some are strong, some are like learning to come into themselves and stuff. But yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you mentioned that you've done a couple of shorts. How, first off, like let the audience know what are some of the shorts that you've done? Are they publicly available and so on? But also, how did those shorts prepare you to end up making a feature?
So the first like proper short I think I did was a Laundry Game, which I don't think is available anywhere, but that was like through the Dollar Baby program for Stephen King. But that like helped me get like some traction, able to get like a proper cast and crew together. And then after that, I did like a couple of smaller ones, and then Tooth for the Tooth, which is like, I don't know, like probably the biggest short, and that's available to stream in America, I think. So that's vampires and drag again, but that's like more religious aspects and like political. And I mean, there's a lot I learned from doing that one. And then after that one, which kind of prepared me for the feature in a way, was The Serpent's Nest, which is premiering in UK for Soho Horror Festival. I think you can stream it in America,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that was like more about transness and like witch vibes, and it had a 70s like time ambiguous kind of period as well. But that was 30 minutes, so it was kind of like a big stepping stone because Tooth for Tooth was 14 minutes. So it was just moving on to the next one. So I thought the next stage was, I guess, a feature. And we shot The Serpent's Nest in 4 days and then my feature in 3. So I guess it just kind of prepared me for like longer schedules and everything. Yeah.
One of the things that I feel is not extremely obvious, and I apologize because this may seem a little bit rude, but you are young. Like, how old are you, and what age did you start making movies at?
I'm 17 now. I turn 18 next month sometime. Old. But I started making films when I was 14, and then, yeah, I think I made Tooth for Tooth when I was 14, and I just had my 15th birthday. I don't know. Yeah, then it was Serpent's Nest, and then I shot So VAM when I was 16. Yeah.
Okay. It's truly amazing and I think really inspirational because a lot of people will hold off on making a movie feeling like, oh, I need to have a certain kind of budget. I need to have connections in the industry. And it very much sounds like you just said, I would like to make movies. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I was always like wanting to make something when I was younger. I always had the dream of being a novelist, but I guess, I was lucky enough to be able to get on some sets that were just like local productions. And then I was like, film is possible, and I don't really want to wait till like, I don't know, I'm 18, like what's the right age to start making a film?
So you also write these shorts and you wrote So VAM as well. Like, how do you translate your written word into the visual medium? Or do you always see it as like you're looking at the finished product and you just have to write it out, so you've got a shot list and stuff?
Pretty much. So I co-write, I think all the ones I mentioned, I co-wrote with Ben Paul Robinson. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a pretty visual person. So like the script is quite, I don't know, it feels like almost not narrative like that's, but it's very fully like imagined in my head, like the style, the shots I want. It's there. I definitely see it when I'm writing it. Yeah.
And you mentioned that a lot of the things that you're drawing from are things like vampires and drag. Where does that interest come from? And is that, I guess I'm interested in unpacking, like, why are those the things that are sort of driving your creative output?
Well, I think vampires, that was like my gateway into horror. When I was 8, I was like watching Buffy, Twilight, True Blood too early. But I don't know, those kinds of things. I was always like, I don't know, there's something just cool, inherently cool about vampires, and also pretty like gay. I mean, I guess, especially
right.
Over time. Yeah, and then drag, I don't know, I think, early on when I was like, gender, what is it, and kind of stuff, there was a lot of, I mean, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was one of the first films I saw very, very young. And I don't know, there's something that drew me to drag, the art of it all, I don't know, the gender kind of, yeah. I mean, not all my work is about drag, but I mean, I guess a lot of it is never like mentioned it, but yeah.
I think there's a sexiness and a playfulness, and also, yeah, as you mentioned, it's exceedingly queer. Like vampires are super, super queer, and then drag is all about like gender performativity and excess and camp and that kind of stuff. And the two marry very, very well. So I think it does make sense. You talked a lot about how these films are like, I guess they're a synthesis of some of the things that you're interested in, but also you are making films outside of a traditional like Hollywood studio system, or even I think outside of like the Australian system. So one of Frightgown's missions is to promote independent horror, queer independent horror specifically. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what you think some of the, I guess, constraints are of making smaller budgeted films or indie films outside of the studio, but then also what are some of the benefits?
I mean, constraints, I guess, like the original So VAM script was like a lot wilder and bigger, like,
right.
I don't want to spoil too much, but like for the opening, like, April confronts some jocks, and originally it was supposed to be like over a bridge and she rips their eyeballs out, so obviously like a lot gorier, but then obviously we couldn't do that. I mean, there was things you have to lose and stuff, which I think that's probably the biggest constraint. Obviously time. I mean, we shot it in like 7 days, which is like hectic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of positives, I guess, because I get to see the vision myself, like completely all the way through. Like there's nothing I have to change, I don't know. Once you see, it's quite explicit film, and I kind of just get to do whatever I want. and say what I want and how I feel. And yeah.
Were you ever given any kind of pushback from people saying like, this is too queer, this is too out there, it's not commercial enough, or that kind of stuff? Or is that the kind of thing that you hear and you say, thank you for the input, I don't fucking care?
Pretty much. I mean, to be honest, there's not like any really pushback from America or like European audiences being like, oh, it's too queer. But funnily enough, like in Australia, they're like, oh, this is a bit not, too, because we don't really have, like with this indie queer films, we don't have big queer films. And yeah, that was a big thing here, but not elsewhere, which is pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so excited to hear that you've been able to secure like distribution in multiple foreign countries, because I think certain things don't land well in certain countries. I'm part of the Commonwealth. I'm from Canada, and we have the same sort of attitude about genre filmmaking at times, where it's like, oh, it's a little too queer, it's a little bit too weird. Wouldn't it be better if you were a little more dramatic, a little more safe? And it's like, you know what? Somebody's going to gobble this up in Europe. So again, thank you, but politely, no. Okay, so we've talked a fair amount about the queerness, and I love the fact that SOVAM is really unapologetically queer. Why is it so important for you to have those different types of representation? What does it mean to you as an artist?
Well, I don't know, I just really want something. Obviously, I can't reflect everyone's experience, and I really based it off things that I needed to see when I was growing up. But there are films like The Craft Legacy, which is one of my favorite films, but the trans character is a sideline character, and she
Right.
says 2 lines about her gender identity. And don't get me wrong, like I love that film, but sometimes I want to see those characters, be the lead ones, be those leaders. Yep. And I don't know, it just like I wasn't getting that anywhere else, and especially like I love horror. I've always loved horror, and I love film in general, but it's not really those kinds of like trans roles, and especially like. I mean, Harley's non-binary. April's like a trans vampire, and I mean, Kurt's like gender not specific, to be honest. But yeah, I just wanted to showcase that, because he's just starting out, whilst April's like kind of taking him under her wing, and so is Harley, and it's just kind of like queer people finding and helping other queer people, which I think is really something you don't see a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're really starting to see is more of an openness to the legitimate diversity within the queer community. Because for way too long, any kind of queer representation were people like me. It was white, cis, gay men. And it's like, that's cool. We've had quite a number of those. I've seen myself on film quite a few times. And I feel like there's now these opportunities to say, we need to get better representation for non-binary characters, for trans characters, for like nuanced, interesting, complicated characters. Like one of the things I really like about SOVAM is that your queer characters are taking up the full spectrum. Like you've got good characters and you've got quote unquote bad or villainous characters, and they're not fitting into the traditional like square holes, round holes. It's like everybody's a little bit messy, everybody's really complicated and interesting, and that feels refreshing and honest.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Okay, so I mentioned your age, and I apologize for asking you, but part of that is just because I think it's worth highlighting that you just went out and did this, because I do think it's really inspirational. Also, as a gentle fuck you for being young and incredibly talented. I don't care for that. So bad on you. Thinking about any younger audiences who might be watching this or who might be inspired to check out your work, what kinds of things would you tell them to get them off the sidelines, or say like motivate them to do this kind of work?
I think you just have to be like really self-motivated. Like I don't know if there's anything I could probably say. Like I've just always been so driven, and I had to don't know how long we're here for, it's pretty dark, but it's true. So like I just had to kind of make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of the questions I'm sure you've been asked a number of times is like, oh, where do your ideas come from? How do you like, why do you do this? And you're just like, because I'm a creative person, I'm a storyteller, like I have to get my stories out there in some way. So I think that's fantastic. So thinking about the fact that you've got SOVAM now out, but also you've already got another feature that you've wrapped on, and we can expect sometime in the near future. What's the sales pitch for people to come out and check your work? Why should they check out SOVAM now that it's publicly available?
Well, I think it's written by queer people. It has like a lot of queer crew. It's about queer people. It's unapologetically queer, and I think, I don't know, in that mix of the horror and camp genre, I think that's really important, and it's a bit different, hopefully, and it's got a good, fun message as well as just being lighthearted, camp, explicit, sweary, a bit gory. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's the thing that I so appreciate about the film. Like, I love the queer representation, but also the film is just really fucking fun. Like, I had such a blast watching it. And I was like, you know what? This is delightful. And people are really going to embrace this. I think particularly young queer people are really going to have a lot of fun with it because it's so much more reflective of that exciting, energetic, youthful vibe that is sometimes missing from the overly polished, like sort of directed by 40-something, 50-something people. So, yeah. So everybody go check out SOVAM, keep an eye out. Alice Maio Mackay, thank you so much for joining me and look forward to seeing what your next project brings.
Thank you so much.